Okay. All right. So, as I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about scholarships, fellowships, and awards. This presentation is a bit heavily more focused on scholarships. I do mention some fellowships and awards, but I found that as undergraduate students, scholarships are a bit more relevant. Especially at UCSB, there's a lot of resources. So, and if anyone else has other resources that they want to share or talk about, feel free to put it in the chat or just unmute yourself at any point to share them. So we're going to be talking about exploring funding options, right? So what are the different ways that you can fund yourself throughout your undergraduate degree, even graduate school, right? So we have FAFSA, we have federal loans and grants. Usually you have to pay those back. We have savings. If you have savings, a lot of people might not. So this obviously is going to vary. And then what we're going to be talking about today, scholarships, fellowships, and awards. So as we all know, education can be very expensive, but the good news is that there are a lot of funding opportunities out there for students, even those who might be undocumented or not qualify for a lot of these scholarships or awards. So why should you apply, right? Just some pointers. You're deserving of money, right? It saves you a lot of money and time. It looks really great on your CV. Usually when you apply for grants or fellowships or awards, it comes with network opportunities sometimes. Increased experience with writing statements. So every time you apply for anything to fund you financially, you have to most of the time write statements as to why you're a good candidate, why you sorry, I'm admitting people from the weight room. I'm having difficulty adding this person. Let's see. Okay. So you get experience with writing your statements, and then when it comes to graduate school, you might already have drafted a lot of that, which will be useful to you. So all about scholarships. We're going to be talking about what types of scholarships are available, where can scholarships be found, particularly at UCSB, when should you apply for scholarships, and how do we start the process? So what are scholarships? We're just going to start with some basic definitions because I think, if I'm thinking back when I was an undergraduate, I would hear all these terms, scholarships, fellowships, awards, and I was like, how do I get any of those, right? So here are some definitions of funding terms. So we have scholarships. Those are typically awarded to students who meet a specific criteria. We'll talk a little bit more about that, whether you're first generation. Sometimes it's race or ethnicity, low SES. So it's specific criteria at times. Fellowships are funding awarded to students or professionals, often tied to an academic project. So I know UCSB has, for graduate students, central campus fellowships. So the way it looks like is if you get nominated, you write your research, you submit your research proposal, and then they get to decide to fund you or not. You have extramural or external funding. This is national, international, or private sources. You've probably already heard of, the more prestigious ones like the National Science Foundation, the Ford Foundation, or the Ford Fellowship, NIH, right? We'll get into those a little bit. There are grants, funding available to students or professionals conducting research projects. Loans, this is something that, a lot of the times you might have to take out, but you have to pay back, usually has interest. Internships are sometimes paid or unpaid opportunities to gain work experience. And then academic assistantships, right? So when you're a graduate student, you can get teaching or research related assistantships that will help fund your tuition, fee remissions, living stipends. You can always also apply for campus jobs, and they also sometimes pay for tuition remission fees and your living stipend. So Although again, finances are a very scary thing for a lot of people, there are funding opportunities. You just got to know where to look for them and apply for them. So scholarships, there are different types, right? We have merit-based, so this recognizes outstanding performance, academic performance. So perhaps a lot of community service, depending on what the requirements are. You have need-based, so if you demonstrate financial need, let's just say that your parental contribution is 0, then there are need-based scholarships. And then there are academic ones, so based on an area of study. So it could be education, STEM, health. Scholarships for every level, if you will. Okay, so there are 3 main scholarship opportunities by grade level, by state, and by type. So by grade level, there's scholarship for high school students, for undergraduate students, graduate students, postdoctoral students, any level, and by state and by type. So by type, again, it usually is like demographic characteristics. I once heard someone got a scholarship, I think, for having red hair or something, right? So I'll show you some links and you can get an idea of what I mean by type, but really it's, if you meet the criteria, you can apply and you're eligible. So this is for high school, I already covered this. I think I skipped over scholarships by state, but these are the most common and easier ones to find. So they're both merit and need-based, and they can be specific by major. So you can get scholarships, psychology, education, history, and these are usually by state. And as I said, by type. So socioeconomic status, artistic abilities like film and dance, leadership and community service, different types. Okay, so where can you find scholarships? So the UCSB Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships has this website that sort of has a resources tab. It has links to scholarships for undocumented students, students of veterans. There were a lot. So personally, I have not, as an undergraduate student, I didn't really take advantage of scholarships, and I wish I would have. So I went on the website myself as I was preparing for this presentation, and I found some really good resources that I hope you all will consider using. One of them is UCSB Scholarship University. I don't know if anyone here has actually signed up for Scholarship University, but it is really incredible, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So it's a scholarship tool. It matches you to internal and external funding, and it's only available to UCSB registered students. So it's sort of like your one-stop shop. You enter your information, it asks you several questions, and then it matches you to scholarships that you're eligible for. And this is what I mean. So I actually did it, right? You see my name, Ileana Flores, and I set up an account, which was really fast. And it told me that I matched with 14 scholarships, but it was telling me how much money I'm eligible for. So it was pretty encouraging because I was looking at them and I thought, oh my gosh, like if I already have some personal statements, right? Because let's just say from when I applied to graduate school, or even statements I'm preparing now for other future endeavors, you can always just modify those, tailor them to apply for current scholarships. So again, I encourage everyone to make an account with Scholarship Universe. It is free to you. And who knows, you might get a few thousand bucks, right? So that is, I found it to be super helpful. Okay, so here are some more scholarship resources. Scholarships.com, I don't know if any of you here are familiar with it, but it provides a list of scholarships based off major. So let's just say you're a sociology major, right? It outlines what scholarships are within your field, or fellowships as well, or even awards. So here you have the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program. I think I was searching for sociology ones, the Davidson Fellowship Scholarship, right? And if you take a look here, the application deadlines are not until next year, 2022, right? And the amount is $50,000, which is a lot of money. So one of the things with applying to any scholarship, fellowship, awards, right, these terms can be used interchangeably, is that you want to sort of prepare your materials with time. And I'm going to be talking about that in just a few more slides. But when should you apply for these for money, right? All year round, their deadlines will vary, but scholarships are all year. So you want to keep an eye out for that. Conduct regular searches. So just exploring what scholarships, fellowships, or awards are available by grade level, state, and type. And recycle your personal statements of purpose, and apply now. So for students who are here, who are applying, and we know McNair Scholars are preparing graduate student applications or statements, you already have a lot of the information that scholarships might ask for. So you're sort of ahead of the game in that way. Most deadlines, from what I found, occur between February and April. Although remember, they're all year round. And you want to make sure you look up deadlines for scholarships that you're interested in. So we know we have scholarships, right? And fellowships, again, is usually awarded to graduate students or professionals, but also to undergraduate students. And this is funding awarded to students or professionals often tied to an academic project. So deadlines may vary. For instance, we have external or extramural funding. Like I was mentioning, the Ford Foundation Fellowship is pretty prestigious, the National Science Foundation, NSF, you have the Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowships for Native Americans, National Institutes of Health, Social Science Research Council, and there's a link here at the bottom that includes, I believe it's 28 fellowships for undergraduate students. So the main idea here, right, is to, I guess, become aware that there are a ton of things that you can apply for. It's just one, becoming aware that, you know, if you find yourself in a tight situation with finances, that you can start looking and start applying, and that UCSB will sort of provides you with one of the, I think, pretty sophisticated tools to get started. So I think it's good for folks if you're not familiar with the Ford Foundation. I think I didn't learn about this until my first year of graduate school, which I thought it probably would have been helpful if I would have learned about it in undergrad. I might have applied, just because I think preparing your materials for something like the Ford Foundation can help you for like your master's thesis or whatever. So this one's awarded based off the description for the Ford, awarded to students who have demonstrated superior academic achievement and are committed to a career in teaching and research at a college of university level. So they offer 3 years of support for those in graduate studies, and it's a lot of money. So I think just being aware of these resources is good. We also have the National Science Foundation. This is an independent federal agency that promotes the progress of science to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare to secure the national defense. So this is funding for undergraduate students, graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, K through 12 educations, small businesses, programs, and veterans. So yes, while these fellowships like the National Science Foundation and even the Ford are very competitive, one thing I think that, you know, just to keep in mind is that it doesn't hurt to, you know, throw your hat in the ring or shoot your shot. Because I know with the Ford, even if you apply and you're not selected, you can get an honorable mention, which is something that looks really great on your CV. If not, you get feedback. So if this still is true for the Ford Foundation, their reviewers will provide you with feedback as to what maybe prevented your application from being one of the awarded ones. So you're getting feedback that's really important, right? And that can help you sort of improve your project or build up on it and make it a bit stronger. And you can always apply the year after. I believe you can apply, I'm not sure what limit there is, but I think you can apply as an undergrad, graduate student, and then a postdoc, I believe. So just become aware of those things. So UCSB also has a Money Matters resource guide that I found as I was going through everything, or was doing this research for this presentation. And let's see, I thought I had provided a link. But if you were to just to research UCSB Money Matters resource guide, it'll show you a PDF, and I think it has really cool information as well. So how do you get started? So let's say you're going to start applying to scholarships, fellowships, awards, right? As an undergrad, perhaps you're applying to graduate school this fall and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to fund my studies? The first thing to getting started is getting organized. So you want to make sure you make a list of all of the information you're going to need, okay? You want to make sure, so this includes, let's say, like, you know, transcripts. Sometimes scholarship applications will ask you for your GPA, so being aware of what that is. Another way to getting organized is doing an application packet. So this provides your application materials to your, let's say the scholarship, the fellowship, or the award is asking for letter of recommendations. You would provide an application packet to your recommenders. So this would include your statements, the statements that you're submitting to the scholarship, the research plan, if it's research related, your CV, and anything else that you think can help you. This is something that I remember suggesting to a student who applied to a really prestigious fellowship who ended up getting it. And they let me know that it was, you know, that they think their letter writers really found it helpful, right? So you want to provide folks with just all the materials. Sometimes people also write in about me. So that's, you know, what are some things that you want your letter recommenders to know about you as they write that letter, so they can sort of speak to your abilities and other things that can help you stand out. So you want to create a list of eligible scholarships. You want to make sure that you are, I see a question in the chat. Would we send all of the materials in our first email to a recommender? That's a really good question. So you would probably want to email the recommender, the person who you want, who you've identified to write you a letter, and ask them first, right? So I would follow up with them and say something like, hi, you know, I'm interested in applying to this fellowship. And you can probably even copy and paste a description of the fellowship or the award or their scholarship, and say, I was wondering if you would be interested in writing me a letter of recommendation. I strongly believe you can speak to my abilities. Here is when it's due. You know, I would really appreciate it. Please let me know. And then if they get back to you and they say, yes, I would love to write you a letter of recommendation. I think I can speak to you, your talents and your leadership capabilities. Then you would follow up and send them your materials. So that's a really good question. You don't want to send your materials in the first email, because it's possible that they will say no. So just keep that in mind. And another thing too, yeah, of course. Another thing too is, let's say your scholarship is due on the 20th of August, okay? You want to get started ahead of time, and you want to give your letter recommenders enough time, like a month at least, to write you a letter, okay? And if your deadline is on August 20th, you want to let them know that your deadline maybe is August 15 or even August 10th. So you don't, one tip that I've heard that I think is helpful is always giving your letter of recommenders a deadline earlier than the actual deadline. So just so you can get your materials in on time, I remember when I was applying to graduate school, I think one of my letter recommenders waited to submit the day of, I think maybe like 10 minutes before. And as you probably can imagine, I was sort of concerned. So, and a lot of other folks had sort of given their mentors and letter recommenders a few days before the actual deadline. And I thought, oh, okay, that would have been helpful. So just a tip. Of course, it depends, right? If you just found out about the scholarship, you don't have a lot of time. It's on a case-by-case basis, but that can sort of be helpful. So you want to make sure you read the directions and qualifications and you find strong matches. Again, I think UCSB already does this for you because it lists out all the eligible scholarships. But one of the things that I was reading was that a lot of the time scholarships or awards are not given to students because they don't read the prompts or the directions correctly. So they will ask, let's say, 3 specific questions, and then the student will turn in something that sort of talks about what they're asking or addresses it, but not necessarily. So you want to make sure you're answering the prompts very, very specifically. If it helps, one thing that I like to do is I copy and paste the questions on a Word document, and then I bullet point exactly how I would answer them just to make sure I'm hitting those points, right? So that's one of the reasons why some awards or money is not given to students. Just keep that in mind. Check the deadlines. Be aware of scholarship scams. So if you go through a website that's not university affiliated, there are just a lot of scholarship scams apparently that you want to be aware about. I believe it said none will ever ask you for your social security or other important information. So just something to keep in mind. Set up a buddy account system for accountability and support. So writing, applying for money can be sort of nerve-wracking for a lot of people because it means you have to talk about yourself, and if you're not used to it, it can be a little weird. But if let's say you want to apply to scholarships, you probably can identify someone else who wants to do it too. And you can have accountability meetings just to sort of help you. You can bounce ideas off of each other, share your statements with them. Also take advantage of the writing resources at UCSB. I'm assuming they're all virtual now, but you always want other folks to take a look at your statements too, just to help. So here's some writing tips. As I said, you want to visit the University Writing Center. You want to start preparing materials early on and receive feedback from mentors, friends. You want to make sure it's clear, concise, free of any grammatical errors. You want to follow exact guidelines. So for an example of this is the goals of your research, right? They'll probably ask you that, previous research experience, etc. And you want to write with confidence. So you want to demonstrate your ability to design a research project and follow through with certainty. Do not misrepresent facts, okay? So think about it. These reviewers are getting tons of probably applications. If they read yours and they notice that you have several grammatical errors or misrepresenting any facts, that could disqualify you sort of right off the bat, even if you do have this really spectacular idea, or even if you meet all of the qualifications. So that's not to say to make this a scary process. It's just, applying for anything is a very intentional thing. So the more you prepare for it, the more higher your chances are. I will also say, I know some people that maybe don't spend a lot of time preparing their materials and have, sort of still shot their, they still shoot their shot and they've ended up getting them. So who knows? Even if, let's say you find a scholarship that you want to apply to and the deadline is in 3 days, but you really want to apply, but you don't have a lot of time, I would say in those cases, still apply. I mean, it's possible that they didn't get a lot of applications, right? Maybe yours is one of the 3, and maybe yours is better than the rest of the other 2. So it doesn't hurt to apply. It's probably the best advice that I've gotten, and one that has seen me through. So I'm speaking from experience. There was this really great fellowship that I wanted to apply for, but I only had, I think I wasn't going to apply to it, and I ended up applying to it last minute, and I was awarded this money, and I was just sort of blown away. I was like, wow, had I not applied, I would have missed out on this. So hopefully that encourages you. You never know. All right. So some more tips for applying. Review successful writing samples. This one's huge. So I know UCSB, this is for graduate students, I believe, but I think can be accessed by undergraduate students who are interested. They have grad division, the Office of Grad Division, they have statements, writing samples that have been awarded, like the Ford Foundation or the NIH or the NSF. You can't take pictures of it, but back when we were able to go inside their office, they had a huge binder, and you can just read statements that students had submitted and been awarded. So there's also a ton of resources. I'm blanking on the name of the book, but I remember when I was applying to graduate school, it had a section for scholarships, and it sort of showed like samples of what to include in your statements. Well, it depends, right, of what the application is asking for. But the main idea here is that you can review successful writing samples and sort of craft yours after that. Identify role models. So, if you want to apply for the NSF, maybe you can ask around your mentors, your teacher, your professors, your teaching assistants, if they know anyone who has gotten it, and maybe you can get in contact with them and talk about it. They could give you some pointers, maybe even review your statements. So it takes a little bit of networking, but it'll put you in great shape, I think. And for any interdisciplinary work, you want to define terms. So I think one common mistake is that students might be really familiar with their topic, obviously, but when they're writing about it, they assume that everyone knows about their research, right? Or certain terminology. And that's not true, because remember, the committee that's reviewing let's say the fellowship that you're applying for might be very interdisciplinary. And if they can't really understand your research, then you're not likely to get it. So just tips to, be mindful about being very specific. All right, so here are just some content credits. And that concludes the presentation. So I'm wondering, that was pretty quick. We're still at 2:30. But I'm wondering if anyone has any questions about scholarships. Feel free to put them in the chat, or unmute yourself. Yeah. Any questions? Does anybody maybe have a scholarship in mind that they could apply to? Or has anyone here ever been awarded a scholarship or a fellowship? How was that experience like for you? Yes, Shelby has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that, like, when I applied for my scholarship, I was kind of doubting myself, but then I just wrote the most about like what I could share, and then I ended up getting it. So
nice.
Advice is to just try, and then you never know. So.
Yes, exactly. Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that, Shelby. Thank you for sharing. Yes, just go for it. You never know. Same experience. Crystal.
Yeah, I had a question for like university scholarships, I guess, or like assistantships and teachers, like TAships. I see that some programs, like, you have to apply for them. Are there, I'm guessing other programs, is it like possibility to get funding like after you get accepted? Like, do they award those or do you apply for those after you get accepted?
Yeah, that's a good question. So teaching assistantships in graduate school, right? If I'm understanding the question correctly, it typically, let's say when you're admitted, they can give you a fellowship, and it will be in the form of a teaching assistantships for, let's say, guaranteed assistantships for a year or 2 years. So I know in my program, they guarantee you a teaching assistantship for a quarter or a year. I can't remember. It's been a while. So yeah, your department can sort of have those for you, or you can sort of venture out into other departments and see what they have available. So from my experience and what I've seen as a student, is I've seen students within my department apply to other, like the Chicano studies, Black studies, and get funded that way, or sometimes they'll be awarded through the department. Like we've been getting several emails about teaching assistantship openings, maybe because someone couldn't, take it on after all. So yeah, that's a good question, but there's a ton of teaching assistantships available all of the time. You just, if it means looking outside of your department, then I think that's okay. Yeah, good question. I hope that answers.
Yeah, it does. Just wondering, who would you contact in the department to ask about that? Like the graduate, like advisor, or like the department?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it could be the program assistant or the graduate advisor. Either of those, I think, is good. Yeah, because I remember I was interested in TAing at some point for the brain and psych and brain sciences department, and I remember I think I got in contact with the program program coordinator, and yeah, you can always just follow up with them and say, in the future, if you ever have any openings, please let me know. I would be super interested, and then they can, and I remember that person, I did that, and that person reached out to me. But when they reached out to offer me a TA-ship, I had already secured a different funding source. But I thought, wow, this was, I was encouraged to do that, and it worked out. So yeah, you always want to ask what's available to you, because it's teaching assistantships, right? As we talked about in the presentation, fellowships, awards, some of them will pay for, teaching assistantships will pay for your tuition, fee remission, then we'll give you a stipend. So it's a lot of money. And it's teaching experience that, if you want to become a teacher in the future, it's things that you can put on your CV or your resume, and it gives you teaching experience. So it all sort of, I see it like as a win-win. Yeah, good questions. Other questions about funding? Okay, I see a question. Is if there is a peer review program to help students apply for the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program in the area of psych, would you say that would be a good idea, or should I just reach out to class or a writing mentor at UCSB to look over my application? I think if I were in your shoes, I would probably take advantage of all of these things you've listed here. A peer review program sounds fantastic because it's designed to help students for the NSF. So maybe they have, just a tad more information or tips that can be sort of make your application stronger. And then, yeah, and then I would probably, as you're getting feedback from those the peer review program, let's say you get feedback from someone, then if you want a second pair of eyes, you can always contact a writing mentor or, someone from the CLAS. Yeah, so you want to make all these resources work for you, right? Because the more you revise your statements, the stronger, the more competitive your statement is. And at the same time, you want to be mindful that there are not too many cooks in the kitchen, right? So what does that mean? Every person that you share your statements with are obviously bringing in different perspectives, different expertise, different knowledge, different ways of writing and communicating whatever it is, right? So you're going to get different feedback from several people, and you want to make sure you're limiting that, right? You don't want to send your statement to 6 different people, because then that means you have 6 statements with different feedback. And how do you incorporate all of that? So typically what I like to do when I'm writing something is I'll send it to one advisor, then I get feedback. Whatever makes sense to me, whatever I agree with, I accept, right? And I incorporate into my statement. And then after that, if I still want an extra pair of eyes, or I think, you know, this professor can give me a good perspective because they're in this discipline or they have this expertise, I'll send it to them, and then I'll wait, you know, I'll wait for their feedback before I send it to someone else. Because it's possible to get contradicting feedback. It's going to happen, right? But again, it's your statement. You are the expert in terms of your experiences and what you want to do. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But good. Yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah, it's happened to me, and it was just so stressful. But I think this is great. I mean, just the different resources you've identified for preparing for the NSF. I think this is awesome. So yeah, great. Any more questions? Of course, you're welcome. How do folks feel about applying to scholarships? Like, what is your general sense when you think about applying to scholarships? Maybe if you could put it in one key term. I dread the essays. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm sure lots of people in here probably agree with that. Yep. See, we're starting to see that. I'm not good enough. Oh, yes. So I feel like the chances of getting a scholarship are slim. I think most people don't apply because they don't want to fill out all the paperwork. Yes, all these things. You know, I think when it comes to talking about ourselves and our accomplishments and why we should get this money, yeah, imposter syndrome can really sneak in, right? And tell us, you're not good enough. The other person next to you has way better research than you. Why would you ever be awarded? But think about it, right? If everyone who is applying to that scholarship is thinking the same thing, or, you know, let's say there's 3 people who want to apply to the scholarship, but all 3 of them think they're not, you know, they can't write a good statement, and those 3 don't apply. But if you have 1/4 person who doesn't think they can write a good statement but still does it, that 4th person is more likely to get it than the 3 who sort of didn't go for it, right? So I guess one thing too, to normalize that, you know, we all struggle with that. I see, Krista, you have another question.
Oh yeah, I just have like a story. I don't know, like I saw like the paperwork comment. And I'm in East Asian studies, so I've applied for like scholarships, like Japanese scholarships, and like I feel like there's like super notorious for paperwork, because I applied for a actual government scholarship, and they want official transcripts, they want a health exam before you, like when you apply, like official enrollment certificate, like they want everything, and it has to be official. And it's kind of just like you're feeling like, oh, like I have to spend money to apply for the scholarship, I have to go through so many different channels to get it. Right. And I didn't get that scholarship. Actually, I like passed like the first round. I was like super excited because I was expecting that, but I didn't get it. But I applied again this year, and I actually passed for the first round. So like, I think the other story is just like you can apply to the same scholarship like multiple times, because maybe the first time you learn from it, and then like you're like, oh, this is what I should have done, and then the second time you can come in with a stronger application.
Yes, thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing that. I think it's a very good reminder to all of us here, right? Just because you get turned away the first time doesn't mean that you can't apply again and that your chances don't increase. It's very true. I wanted to show you all something that this conversation is reminding me about right now. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with or has seen the CV of failures. Is anyone familiar with that? Or seen it? The CV of failures. Yes, Lisa said yes. By, can't say the name, but I'm going to share it really quick. But before that, let me make sure I get everything that's in the chat. I got a scholarship once just through my school because everyone else didn't want to fill out the paperwork. That's amazing. Yes. So, it takes a bit more work, but free money is always nice, right? It gives you more time to do things you need to. Okay, fine. I'm convinced I'll do my paperwork. This is great. I'm glad to hear that, Arsalan. They only have so many to give out. Could I ever get awarded this prestigious XYZ? Yes. Yep, very, very common thoughts, right? But you might be pleasantly surprised. So let me just really quickly share this. Hang on one second. The CV of failures. I think it's relevant to what we're talking about. So I did a quick search and here is the CV of failures. So this is from a faculty member at, I believe it's Princeton. Let me see. Yeah, so this faculty member at Princeton, sorry, it's right here. Well, it's the one I had open. Let me just go back to that one. So this person did a CV of failures just to sort of show that the degree programs this person did not get into, right? Because when we think about our CVs, like it says here, the idea is not theirs, but we just hear about people's accomplishments, right? Like, oh, this person got that award or this person got, but really, if you look about how many times this person probably applied, you might be surprised, probably a few times, or if you see the amount of hours that went into that, maybe a lot. You probably didn't see how many times they broke down, right? But because we tend in our society to sort of show, put our best foot forward or show our best face. But failure happens and it's all a part of it. So degree programs that I not get into, right? All of these academic positions and fellowships I did not get. So, I mean, there's a lot here. Awards and scholarships I did not get. So all of these, right? Very prestigious ones. Paper rejections from academic journals. Research funding I did not get. Meta failures. This darn CV of failures has received way more attention than my entire body of academic work. So, and part of that reason, I think it's, again, because this person is normalizing that failures are very much a part of everyone's educational trajectories. So hopefully that's a bit encouraging to folks here. Remember, and I think especially now in the world of social media, most people are only submitting or posting about or highlighting, showcasing their accomplishments. So that can make one feel sort of behind or not good enough. But there's always more to that, to what meets the eye. Just remember that. All right. I have one more thing that I want to show, but anything, any other comments, ideas? These are some really good discussion. Yes, I see. Rosalind, you have a question? I hope
I do. Yeah, no, that's right. So first off, this is like really great, the whole workshop. I'm wondering, speaking about CVs, I know that we tailor them to whatever school we're looking for or whatever internship or what have you, but how would we still do that same thing for the grants and fellowships, or do we want to try to pack it with as much about the things that we've done?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. What I like to tell students is that you want to tailor your materials to that application, that thing you're applying to, right? So if you're applying to a scholarship that recognizes a lot of research, what is it? Contributions, let's say, then you might want to make that section really strong of your CV, right? You want to think about all of the research activities you've been a part of, and you want to just sort of make that section meaty and make sure you have, strong synonyms and sort of descriptions. Sometimes they have a page limit. So, I've seen that some applications will, like scholarship, fellowship, award applications will say, a limit of 2 pages for your CV. And so students will come to me and say, like, what do? I have so much that I don't want to take out. And so what I say to them is like, just keep whatever you think is the most relevant to this scholarship, right? So if if they're weighing community service for the scholarship above teaching experience, you want to make sure you include that community service, and maybe you can do away with the teaching experience. So it depends. For instance, I'm thinking about a scholarship that I applied to, and it was the case with them. They were like only 2 pages, and I was like, okay, what do I do here? And when I sent it to somebody, one of not an advisor, but it was someone who I had identified more as a mentor. She said, where is this presentation that we did at, I think it was like at the UC Regents or something. And I was like, well, I took it out because I didn't think it was relevant. So again, you want to make sure even if it wasn't entirely relevant, it's sort of that presentation showcased maybe that I had, sort of some experience with community organization or affiliation. So I don't know if that necessarily answers your question, Rosalind, but if you don't have a page limit, you want to include everything. If you do, just be very specific about what you include.
No, sounds great. You definitely answered it, like all the other questions that you've answered too.
Great, thank you. All right, any other questions? I want to show you all this. I think this is a great discussion, and it's making me think a lot about these things. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up right here. So this is an image that I've included to some presentations that I've given to students. Let me save the image really quick. All right. Pull it up. You all may have seen this somewhere on social media, but this is the iceberg illusion. So success is an iceberg, right? This is what people see. They see your success, but this is what people don't see, as we were talking, right? Your persistence, the failure, the sacrifice, the disappointment, discipline, hard work, dedication. That's what we don't see. And so, again, on Facebook, all we're seeing is the top of the iceberg. But we're all sort of, dealing with the same things. So hopefully that's a bit encouraging to everyone here. I like to keep this image somewhere in my peripheral, like on my desktop sometimes, not as my background, but somewhere where I can see it, because I think it's a nice reminder as we're all working so hard. And as for folks here that are applying to graduate school, it can serve as a nice reminder. So how many people can relate to that? I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Yes, absolutely. This recording will be will be posted to our YouTube channel. So if you're not following us already, please do. It's ucsb@mcnair.edu. And yeah, I'm happy to send a copy of the workshop to whoever would like it. Yeah, no problem. I'm going to make sure I make a note of that. Okay. Anything else, folks? If not, we are going to wrap up for today. You know, a few minutes early, but yeah, I think I saw someone have a question. Sorry, I think I missed it. They had their hand up. No? Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for being here, for your great ideas and contributions. I hope you are encouraged to apply to scholarships. I will definitely take my own advice. There are a few things I've been eyeing, and I'm just similarly, right? It never really ends. I think the imposter syndrome, unfortunately, is something that gets better, something maybe better that we learn how to handle, but that voice is sort of always there. So yeah, throw your hat in the ring and hopefully you're rewarded for it. All right, again, the presentation will be up. It'll be up on Gaucho Space for the McNair Scholars, on our YouTube for everyone else. Oh, I'm so glad to hear it's been helpful. And yeah, feel free to get in touch with me if you ever have any questions. I'm going to put that in the chat. It's my email. I always love to talk to students because it wasn't very long ago when I was an undergrad. So, all right, everyone, take good care and see you at our next workshop. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.